AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Thank you for tuning in. 5 minutes after 10 o'clock, we have on the phone L. McKinney. She is a writer, a poet, an active member of the Kidlit community, a gamer girl, it says here, Robin, an advocate for the equality and inclusion in publishing. Oh my gosh, that's something we absolutely need to fix. She's the creator of the hashtag, what WOC writers here. Okay, I'm going to ask what that is. And the book we're going to talk about is her book called A Blade So Black, a fantasy book. This is kind of based on the Alice in Wonderland idea, but not. And it's in Atlanta, I believe, right, Robinson? Yeah. L. McKinney. Good morning, L. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you. Are you in Atlanta right now?
I actually am not. I live in Kansas City.
Oh, in Kansas City. But the story is set in Atlanta, right?
It is set in Atlanta, yes.
So let me clear up what this is first of all. What is the hashtag? What is that? WHAT? What OC? What is that?
Oh, it's what WOC authors here, which is what women of color authors here. Essentially, what was happening is a good friend had started she's like a colleague. She had started a hashtag, what women authors here. Which is a lot different than what male authors hear. And women were posting things like people would come up to them at conventions or signings, and they would say, "I'm so glad that I didn't know you were a woman when I started reading your book, because I wouldn't have picked it up."
Oh, that is so stupid. Oh, my gosh. Why would somebody say that? That is crazy. Oh,
it happens multiple times, and they think it's a compliment.
Oh, they think it's a compliment? Okay. You know, it's the call letters for this radio station are WOCA, and the women of color something shows up a lot of times with when you do the Google search for us. So we have a bond right there. The WOCA. So tell me about the story, and then we'll talk about your writing in general. Tell me about this one specifically, though. What is this story about? I probably did a bad job at even comparing it to Alice in Wonderland, but. I'm going to let you talk.
Well, it is sort of, I like to call it a reimagining of Alice in Wonderland, because it doesn't necessarily retell the story in those specific beats. So A Blade So Black both asks and answers the question, what if Buffy fell down the rabbit hole instead of Alice?
Gosh.
Okay, that is a good one. In other words, so the way people are treated differently based on their physical attributes, the color, their gender, that kind of thing.
It's more, for this one, well, yes, that does come up, but this Alice, as you can probably tell by the cover, if anybody's seen the cover, like she's holding two daggers. So my thing was, if Wonderland is a real place, that means like the Bandersnatch and the Jabberwocky are real, and that poem pretty much talks about how they kill things. So she's gonna have to defend herself.
You're right.
Goes into Wonderland to fight monsters.
I know. I thought the same thing with the Wizard of Oz. I thought, oh my God, there's a lion there. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's kind of a fun approach to something like this. So, was it hard to get a publisher to say yes to this one?
It was for a little while. I started writing the book a while ago. Years and years ago, and part of the what women of color hashtag is that myself and other authors would hear things like, we really like the story, but we already have our Black girl book for the year, so we're only allowed one.
What?
Apparently.
I never heard this before.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, there's a lot
that is just so
that goes on in publishing. That's just Yeah.
Oh my gosh! We speak to so many publicists and author agents and that sort of, and of course authors as well on the show. But I mean, prior to the show, in order to find you guys and gals, we are constantly, and it seems like they're always looking for women authors and authors, who are writing about discrimination, that kind of thing.
It's true that there is this big call for diversity now, but there's this sort of unspoken rule as to who they want the diversity from. So there have been studies, while there might be, out of the hundreds of thousands of books published a year, say there's like 700 books about Black people, right? And that in itself is an egregious, that's just horrible. But of those 700 books, maybe 35 of us who are Black authors have written them. So one example that I give is that my book this year, I am one of only 4 Black women YA fantasy authors who came out this year. There were only 4 of us, and I'm the very last one.
Oh, wow.
Whereas on any given Tuesday, 4 of those books are published by white authors. Every Tuesday there are at least a couple dozen books published.
Well, you're a trailblazer then. You're making a difference.
That's what I'm hoping, and I stand on the shoulders of giants, as a friend likes to say, like Toni Morrison and Octavia Butler. They blazed a path for us to get where we've gotten, and I'm hoping that I open more doors for other authors of color in the future.
And your book is also happens in real time moments with real time scenarios that actual girls are going through with the overprotective mom.
Yes, Alice's mom was hands down one of my favorite characters to write, because one of the things about these books, like Harry Potter or the books that are really popular with kids in them, is that usually the parents are missing, and if the parents were present, chances are they wouldn't be so keen on the kid running off to face danger. So Alice's mom doesn't know what she does, which is play monster. That's her after-school job. So she kind of throws a wrench in it all the time because her daughter is out late and not picking up the phone. I mean, yes, she's defending the realm, but her mom doesn't know that. She just thinks her kid is acting up. So it's a real-world dynamic.
I was looking at some of the reviews that you have on your Amazon page, and I just want to read one to the listeners. This is from the School Library Journal. The quote is, "McKinney has infused this urban contemporary retelling of Lewis Carroll's classic Alice's Adventures in Wonderland with a Buffy the Vampire Slayer sensibility and black girl magic." Boy, that sums it up, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's what I was hoping for.
So once we get past a person's race, and once we get past a person's gender, which I think it's easier to get past race than gender. It's hard to imagine, like James Bond as a woman as much.
Yeah.
It's easier to picture James Bond as a black guy than it is as a woman, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But once we get past it, the story itself is very good too. I don't want the listeners to think that we're stuck on the character's race or gender.
Well, it's not an issue as in, there's nothing wrong, with these things. It's just that growing up, I read a bunch of science fiction and fantasy, and I devoured those books. Those are my favorite, like Tolkien and so forth. I love those stories, but I never saw myself on the cover or even in the story. So while I was able to sort of observe the adventure, I was never able to go on it. And this sort of gives me permission, and then gives other people who are reading a chance to go on the adventure. I can imagine that I am Buffy instead of just sitting back and watching her get to be awesome.
Sure.
Now I get to be awesome.
See, one of the things I think when writers write, I often think that the cover does a disservice because it's the reader who should determine what the character looks like, and like the Harry Potter thing, for example. I mean, if you didn't see the cover and you were just reading it, Harry Potter could be any color.
Yeah.
He'd be male. He'd be male. So that's for sure. But
that's kind of not true. I mean, there's this thing that's called the white default, which is, and it's been tested. Like, if you describe a character without mentioning race to a group of people, at least 85% of them will think that the character is white. Because pretty much all stories
Well, that's
have
fair.
a white focus.
That's
especially
a fair.
in science fiction and fantasy.
Yeah, that's a good comeback to what I just said, and I agree with you. I think you're right about that. I mean, a perfect example would be me. I can give you an example. I like to think I'm not racist, but I'm going to tell you something I do that I caught myself doing. I was at the grocery store, and there was a lady at the cash register, and I told her a joke, and she laughed, and I thought, oh man, that made me feel good, you know. So then I came out to Robin, and I said, Robin, it was funny. I was telling this joke to the black lady at the cash register. Then I told her the rest of the story, and I thought, wait a minute, why didn't I just say lady? You know, why did I throw in the word black? And I realized at that moment that I was doing it too. And so I try not to do that anymore. But I do think you're right that there is a default, and I never heard it put that way before.
Yeah, it's something that, I mean, I wasn't even aware of it, you know, before I got into publishing. And it's something that doesn't really come up. I mean, it's coming up more and more now. Like, if you Google it, you know, people are studying it and trying to correct it, which is, you know, even why trade magazines who do the reviews for books are starting to purposefully, you know, mention whether or not a character has been described. Because there's nothing wrong with saying somebody's white or black or East Asian, Korean or South Asian, Indian, you know, because that's what we are. And this idea that saying, you know, black lady or white guy is somehow an insult is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
There's nothing wrong with any of it.
I absolutely didn't mean it as an insult. I was basically just describing the person I spoke to, but I would not have done that if the lady had been white. That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying that you were were trying to insult. I'm just saying that that's where, like, the white default was developed in the beginning, is because people didn't want to, like, say that as if describing that would be, like, a bad thing. That had nothing to do with you.
Hey, how you doing? I do think you've hit on something, though. I think when I'm reading the reviews here, that you're hearing from some people who are, I guess, getting the encouragement, I suppose, from what you've done to do something similar, to write a similar kind of writing. Whether it's, I'm reading some of these reviews, some of them look like one of them was a songwriter I found on here, and creating a song in that regard. I'm sorry, Robin, go ahead.
It just since you have been a reader for agents and you were a participating judge for the online writing contest, how did you keep your objectivity? That's very tough to do.
It is, and it comes with, it's like any muscle, like you have to work at it, and you have to build it up. And you have to, like, go in that space with a focused lens. Like, when I sit down to read a story for fun, I try and take, you know, the reviewer, the critique mask off. But when I sit down to look at a story objectively, you know, I have in the back of my mind certain parameters that are things that people could hit in general. Like, you know, pacing is something that is a physical attribute to a book, but is nothing like, some people might enjoy slow pace, some people might enjoy quick pace. And if I say that the pacing is a little bit slow or that a little bit fast, that will indicate to that person whether or not they want to read the book, but that's not me casting judgment on it.
Oh,
so those are the kind of ways that you stay objective.
So let's talk about the book specifically again. Who is the protagonist?
The protagonist is, her name is Allison Kingston. She's 17-year-old. She lives in Atlanta. And she's a huge geek, like myself. So she plays video games and she cosplays. And one of the reasons I said it in Atlanta is because before her father passes, which happens at the beginning of the book, he and her would go to Dragon Con every year. And as somebody who used to do Dragon Con every year, that can get expensive. So making it to where it was their hometown just sort of made it easier for them to have been going since she was little.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about her. What is the backstory for her?
Well, for her, she is she's the only child, and she's just sort of this amalgamous mix of a bunch of girls that I knew, both in my life, like my sisters and my cousins, and then ones growing up from school, who enjoyed these things, but, you know, it wasn't really something that was celebrated. Like, you know, being a geek back in the day wasn't necessarily like, hey, that is awesome. I mean, there are movies dedicated to showing how it was, you know, you were kind of picked on for liking these things.
Oh, we grew up during that era, believe me, and there were fellows in my high school that they were classified as that. And, you know, now it's like to be revered.
Yeah. And so, you know, having written this character who is a geek, but also, like, runs around and slays things, like that, she's awesome. So she's also pretty awkward at times. So she's a typical teenager where she's coming into who she is, figuring out her place in the world and how she's going to affect it.
And you also put in there someone a little opposite than her. Her best friend is extremely high maintenance.
Yes. Courtney Morone is her best friend. She's also based on people in my life. I never base one character on one person specifically because that's just dangerous in case they read that. Right. It's usually like a bunch of people together, and Courtney is high maintenance. She's very wealthy. They go to the same school, and she's a little bit of self-centered because she's smack in the middle of 5 sisters who are all very gorgeous. So she has extreme middle child syndrome. So she doesn't really feel heard, or sometimes she feels ignored. So she goes above and beyond to be like, here I am. I'm a person. You can say hi to me. You know, I'm not one of my sisters. I am me.
And that's pretty amazing too, because more and more that the children growing up accept that and exude that I am me, I'm not somebody else. I think that our whole society would be better off.
Yeah, in having put all of this from people that I know, I'm hoping that kids who are out there, even if they don't readily identify with Alice, that they're able to empathize with her, and maybe they're able to readily identify with like a side character. Like, I loved Hermione in Harry Potter. I didn't mind Harry either. He's pretty awesome. But my connection was to Hermione.
You know, in the spirit of Lewis Carroll, I think you're doing something very similar in that you are making some real important observations on the society we live in. That's what he was doing too. A lot of people don't realize that Alice in Wonderland was a commentary on the social setting of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is something that we can't really get away from as, you know, artists and as writers. For one, because like we're all a product of our time. It's going to be in the work whether or not we want it to. So my opinion is that making a conscious decision on how it's in there, not if it's in there, if you focus on how it's present, will make the story better. Because it is going to be. Like, if you fight against it, then people are going to pick up on things that maybe you didn't intend, but, I mean, they're there. So you may as well, you know, try and mold what you can and what you're aware of.
And in Alice's fantasy world, where she's, you know, the protector of everyone, in the real life world, she even has to worry about her grade slipping.
Yes, she has to worry about pretty much living life in general. She has to worry about her mom and, you know, not getting grounded, and she has to worry about her friends, and she has to worry about school. But at the same time, she's doing this amazing thing that if she were to let anybody know, for one, they probably wouldn't believe her and would, you know, be like, okay, so we're going to take you to talk to somebody about this? Because that's a really vivid hallucination. So she has to do all of this, but also keep the secret inside her. But at the same time, she has all this pressure on her that if she fails, people could get hurt.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this is a very profound conversation we're having, and it reflects the book pretty well. Let's see, L.L. McKinney is our guest, and she is the author of the book called A Blade So Black. I found it on Amazon. You're getting some really good reviews on Amazon. Do you have a website set up for your book or for yourself?
I do. It's llmckinney.com.
Okay.
And there's all sorts of information on appearances that I'm making throughout the rest of the fall and starting in the spring. And also links to various stores where you can get copies, including signed copies. So all the information is there, including, where to find me on social media, because I'm kind of addicted to Twitter.
And since you are a gamer, this would make a great heroine for a video game.
It would. Oh my gosh. I love storytelling through games as well. I think it's a medium that doesn't get as much, what's the word?
Respect? Much respect?
Probably that's close to it. Credit. There we go. You wouldn't, I use words for a living, but they often abandon me.
When you do a radio interview. I'm looking at the trailer for the book on your website. That's awesome. Wow.
Were you nervous when you decided that you were going to have this endeavor for your very own, since you were so used to supporting other writers?
I was. The couple weeks leading up to the release, I was getting sick to my stomach. I was super nervous because, there's this thing that's so personal to you, and it's going to go out into the world, and people are going to interact with it, one way or the other. Right. Now I'm doing much better with it, because readers are coming up and they're talking about, oh my God, I loved it, and I just smile and nod because I'm an awkward fish. But I'm very thankful and very blessed, and it doesn't feel real just yet. I'm told that's normal.
You put so much into it. Yeah, I mean, this is like a baby for you. You put so much into it. Let's see. I have a copy of the book here. If I have a listener who would like the copy that was sent to us, just call me and I'll leave it on the desk here for you. The number is 622-9622. The rest of us have to go buy it. Let's see. I found it on Amazon, and your website is your name, basically, llmckinney.com. I went there just now and watched the trailer for the book. So will Allison have? Will there be more? Will there be a follow-up, or is this a character that is a one-time only character?
It's the first book in a series. So I'm hoping that we get to follow Alice for a good while, and that we get to have fun and just go with her on this journey and watch her slay things.
You have an audiobook, too. Let me listen to a sample of the audiobook here.
She sat in the mouth of an alley, God knows where. Her tears made it hard to see. Snot and the stink of something sour made it hard to breathe.
Wow.
I can take it away. The darkness shifted with movement deeper in the alley, coming toward.
Oh, wow. I love audiobook. I'm a big audiobook fan, by the way.
That's amazing.
Well, Elle McKinney...
She did a really amazing job.
So did you. Yeah. Yeah. We congratulate the singer and the songwriter, in this case, the speaker and the writer. Elle McKinney, what a pleasure to get to know you. Thank you for being on the air with us today. The book, again, is called A Blade So Black. Keep us in mind with the next book.
I certainly will. Thank you so much for having me. I love this.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, we'll be right back.
She screamed.
Oops, I got the thing still going.
Lunged.
We'll be right back.
Get equipped for anything with a John Deere 3025E compact tractor from AgPro. It's equipped with a low price of $139 per month, and we've got all the attachments you'll ever need. Request a quote at agproco.com. Subject to approved installment credit with John Deere Financial. 20% down payment required. Taxes, freight, setup, and delivery charges could increase monthly payment. See dealer for details.
AccuSleep offers a safe and effective medical option for those who suffer from sleep disorders of all kinds. AccuSleep makes restoring healthy sleep patterns possible. No medication, no surgery, just good, sound sleep. Mend your sleep so you can stop counting sheep. Experience restorative sleep at AccuSleep, the acupuncture sleep clinic.